talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantoos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rod Gantoos.
Well, it's Wednesday. It's a little after 12 o'clock. I apologize, but we were having way too much fun. And so it's time for another episode of The Raad Life. And, you know, I'm kind of excited because we're about to kick off election season.
Ooh.
Or should we call it open season? I don't know which one is it.
I think that's what it's going to be this year.
I just flashed on some really bad Bugs Bunny cartoons. Is that showing my age? Shh, got to be very, very quiet. We're hunting candidates. No. Right. So no, but it's election season. If you don't realize that, I don't know where your head has been, but you know, it's definitely full on from national to regional to state to local. I mean,
and it's early this year. Right?
Oh yeah,
it's not June. It's March.
Did it actually stop since 2016? Yeah. I mean, I think it's been ongoing, really. Seriously, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So you know, we're having a crisis of conscience on every level, or we are completely burnt out and we don't really care. Right?
I think it's both.
Which I don't know which one is worse, to be honest with you. So, last election cycle, I just want to kind of like take a moment here and brag for a minute. Last election cycle, we again in our effort to basically try to tap into stuff that's local, things that's of interest to me, things that impacts my life, other people's lives that I care about, people around me. We basically invited a bunch of people running for everything from city council to I think we had Congress and we had school district, you know, at different cities in Orange County, and we had them on the show. And you know, we had probably about a dozen, I would say, I think if I recall correctly, and of which 8 of them got elected to office, including a couple of congressmen in D.C.
I like the sound of that.
Right. So, you know, I'm not promising anything, Chris, but, you know, we're batting a pretty good average here, right? Yeah. I think it's all Paul's fault, but, you know, that's a different story altogether.
Must be me.
It's you. It's all Paul's got the Midas touch. So
the secret weapon.
Yes, he's the secret weapon. But so it's interesting because here we are again. And the reason why I do this is because it's not so much the us and them, the red shirts and the blue shirts. It's not the which side of the aisle you're on. It's the fact that these are people, first and foremost. I don't care what you agree with, who you agree with. First and foremost, these are people that are putting themselves out to be of public service. Okay, so just take a minute and just comprehend that, right? Would you do that? I don't know that I would. Like the culture and the environment that we are in is so toxic. It's so polarized. It's so harmful. It's so devoid of, dare I say, political correctness or even civility.
Yeah.
That pretty much no holds barred. It's a friggin' cage match, right? And yet you have these people, thank God, that believe enough in the concept of democracy and one vote, one voice, that they actually will put themselves, and not just themselves, but their families, people around them, through the gauntlet, and it is a gauntlet, right? In order to do what? To be of public service to you and me, all right? So first and foremost, I don't care which side of the aisle they are. Anybody who's running for election, anybody who's running for public office, to be a servant of the people, hats off to you, honestly.
Well, thanks, Rod. And actually, it's all those reasons are the reasons I got in.
Right.
I didn't see people who, a lot of people who were willing to do that. I know I'm willing to do that.
Understandably, Chris. I mean, it is a horrific thing.
It's a sacrifice.
Yeah, like I said, I'll be the first to admit. I've been asked. I don't know that I would run. I mean, you know, and I've got parents that are elderly. They're dealing with their own stuff. Do I want to subject them to that kind of like no holds barred? I don't care by whatever means necessary. Okay, we lose a part of our soul when we engage at that level, and I don't care who it is. That is a fact. Okay, you lose a part of your humanity when you engage at that level. So if you're willing to engage at that level, hats off to you. You want to do that? Go ahead, right?
Well, some things are more important, right, than some of those personal losses. And my community deserves a representative who can stand up for what's right and deliver something for South Orange County, for the district. And so those things are more important right now, and than frankly my own, taking a little bit of a financial loss.
You know what? I'll hats off to you, honestly, Chris. Right? Because I mean that is not a small thing to sacrifice.
Sure.
Right? Like I said,
You're right.
I might not. I wouldn't do it. I don't know if Paul, would you do it?
You know what's more important than any of this right now? We got to introduce who he is.
Right? I know. I'm getting there. But I'm asking you a question. Would you run for office?
No.
And the reason why? Other than probably you won't. No, I'm not going to say that.
Too many skeletons. No.
Too many skeletons in your closet.
I think it's a sad day when the majority.
They're fun skeletons, but they're still skeletons.
Yeah. The majority of people would be that, because as much as we all have at some level a desire to help others, I think it's true, particularly as you get older. I think that the smear campaigns take their toll and scare us.
And I want to get back to that, because the thing that Paul provides for this show, and for those who basically say, why does Paul talk so much? Why is he constantly on the mic, right? Can't stop it. No, I can. I can turn him off. Like, I can tell him just basically, I can start throwing stuff at him, he'll stop, right? Yeah. The reason why Paul is very good and a good integral part of this show, and we've been on the air now 5 years, okay, is because he really represents, in different ways, man of the street. I mean, he is a baby boomer living in Orange County.
That's right.
Okay, that is probably, I would venture a guess, fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like so many other of us.
Right?
District 73 for sure.
Regardless whether you got a D or an R or a non-party affiliate,
yes,
like myself, associated with it, most of us are that way. And how do you not be that way living in California? I mean, right. I don't care which side of the aisle you are, you got a liberal streak in you somewhere.
And that's why I lead with policy, not party. Right. I'm about common sense ideas, and those special interests and political affiliations, that's not where I come from.
I'm gonna tell you, and I've said this to you before, and I've said it to Paul before. I don't know how you win as a candidate on any level. Okay, of course you need the endorsement of a party, because we have a 2 friggin' party system instead of a multi-party system, which is what we should have.
Sure.
Right, but it's a controlled environment, and slates get bought early, and airtime gets bought early, and it's basically you can't get in kind of into this club to play, right? But that being said, regardless of what letter you got behind your name, honestly, I don't know how you win anymore when a third of the registered voters are non-party affiliated.
Right.
You have to address things on a topic,
yes,
and a person. You cannot no longer basically ride on the D or the R alone. Right? Because at best, even if you get your base, you're missing out on a third of the voter.
And the parties themselves have got to be scared of that, because the fastest growing party in Orange County is not the Ds or the Rs, it's the refuse to state, the decline to states.
Right.
Yeah, that's the largest growth path, by the way.
Yeah.
Because what people don't realize is the Republican Party has been shedding membership. And by the way, over the last 10 years at least. So if you think it's only because of Trump or no, it's because the party has lost its way. I was registered, the only party I was ever registered to, and I've said this before, is the Republican Party. Right? That was, family values, small government, fiscal responsibility.
What happened to that?
Where are those things right now, right? I mean, the Democrats are actually more close to that than the Republicans, right? And by the way, really? You got the Attorney General weighing in on a personal trial because the president basically didn't like what the verdict was going to be. Right. I mean, are you the A in America? What does that stand for? It's starting to sound like it's authoritarian, right?
Well, thankfully, we have folks like the 4 prosecutors who took the morally courageous path and resigned instead of being a part of that.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you this, Chris. So when I heard that, my initial reaction was that.
Yeah.
But then I got pissed.
Sure.
Because it basically meant they left the field. They abandoned the field, the battleground.
And to make a point.
And to make a point, great, terrific. You know what? If you are trying to make a point, you are expecting that the opposing side will be moved by that point. You have an opposing side that could care less. In fact, only sees it as good, less for us to clear out.
Well, I think the counterpoint there is they would be obligated then to carry on a perspective, a position that they feel morally against.
Right.
And they could not continue to do that in their right minds. Right. They're part of the Department of Justice. This is supposed to be a nonpartisan agency that is ensuring that justice is
okay.
ensured.
But I'm going to bring it back to you. So first and foremost, Paul is right. Let's just introduce our guest, Chris Duncan, who's running for California Assembly District 73.
Yeah.
Which covers what?
Which covers
Aliso Viejo, Mission Viejo, Laguna Niguel, Las Flores, all the way down to Dana Point,
Mission,
Coto too, Rancho, all the way down to Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, and San Clemente.
Yeah.
Shout out to San Clemente,
and my hometown.
And who currently represents the district? I'm sad to say I don't even know who. I live in that district.
You're not alone.
And that's got nothing to do with his age, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
It is Bill Breaux. Bill Breaux is the current
Yeah.
assembly person from District 73. He's a Republican from Dana Point.
And I want to put the invite out to everybody. I mean, we did this last time with the election in San Clemente to all people running for city council. I want to put the invitation out to anybody who's running for office. I mean, Bill, I've tried to reach to him on social media. I want to give people a platform to basically talk about their position. If anything, I'm an equal opportunity griller.
Great.
Right? And this is a non-party affiliated platform, right?
Right.
And how long has Bill been? It seems like he's been there a while, hasn't he? Now, when you say the name, I go, oh yeah, I've heard the name. I know.
Yeah, I believe he's running for his third term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and there's 4 other candidates running. I mean, a total of 4, right?
Yes,
including you.
Yes.
2. I think it's split halfway, right? 2 on the Democratic ticket, 2 on the Republican ticket. As part of the primary.
Well, there's one other Democrat, and then there's Bill, and there's 2 other Republicans. So there's 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats.
Right, with the incumbent being Bill.
Yes.
Right. So let's just educate people a little bit. You know, this is not.
Which side are you running on?
I'm running as a Democrat.
Okay. All right.
So let's just educate people a little bit. This is not a how the bill is made cartoon thing, but for people who don't know, right?
Yeah.
So you've got 5 total candidates,
Right.
1 running for re-election, and 4 others basically vying for the same seat. So what is the process, Chris? I mean, you guys, there's a primary coming up in March,
Right.
So what happens?
All right. So there's 5 candidates. Everybody should have their ballot by now. Ballots all came in the mail this year. And you can mail them in, you can drop them off at voting centers, or you can voting drop boxes, or you can go to a voting center. If you didn't get a ballot, you can go to a voting center. I think they open up on the 18th and find out what happened to your ballot. But
well, and there is a registrar of voters, basically like a website.
Right.
Please, okay, take a minute and check your registration.
Yes.
Because things have changed. You can't go to a ballot place anymore. You got to go to a voting center.
So there's not as many polling stations.
Right.
Yes.
There's not so many polling stations. Make sure that you don't somehow get expunged of the voter registry because you have multiple addresses. Somebody decided that you have an inconsistency in your database, in their data. Right. You know, please take a minute and double check. I did it yesterday night. It took me less than 2 minutes, and I basically did that. Please do that because
so you can do that online at the registrar.
And honestly, you either vote by mail.
Right.
And in fact, I'll tell you what's amazing, right? I found this to be very amazing. Yeah. After I got done checking my thing, it gave me the option to receive information via text and via voice.
Right.
About the status and where my ballot is, including, by the way, when it gets counted.
Yes.
Right?
Fantastic.
So there's a lot more control on this, but please don't be left out because this is.
Can I do a shout out here to Neil Kelly, who's been on the show numerous times in the past few years, Orange County Registrar of Voters. Yep. I really am impressed with the guy, just on a personal level. He's been very open and honest in talking about the challenges of counting ballots in these days and the fears everybody has of going back to the 2000 election or now the Iowa election or all these other things. And they've been very innovative, I think, here. I think he sat on some national committee. I'm going to give him a little shout out here of how to. We're all trying to figure out how to do this better and how to do it easier and to get more people participating in it. And they started an experiment, I think it was the last election, where they had these voting centers like at Mission Viejo City Hall where you could go in early voting, or they had trucks that would show up at parks, or they would have other sorts of trailers that would show up at events. And wow, so easy, so cool, what a great idea. Because the object is to get everybody to vote.
So not just have one day where you have to vote.
Well, as long as you're registered.
Well, exactly. Now, you do have to get registered. I believe it's by the 18th. So if you haven't registered, and I met a couple people today who are supporters of mine who haven't registered yet. Right?
18th of this month.
18th of this month,
February.
So February. So
we're the 12th.
Yeah, maybe it's 12th.
Right around the corner.
No, we're the 12th.
Oh, we're the 12th. Okay, yeah. No,
so you got 6 days.
OC vote. OC vote.
OC.
And so to get back to it, yeah. I mean, so you've got 5 candidates for this incredibly important position. These are really important cities, beautiful cities. What a wonderful community.
I think I
South
looked.
Orange
I
County.
think, and I may be wrong, but because everything you read on your Wikipedia has to be true, right? But 15% of Orange County is in this district.
Sure. And in South Orange County is a wonderful place to live, but we haven't gotten the representation we deserve in Sacramento. And look, Sacramento is too partisan. I think even Democrats can see that. And so that's why we need somebody like me, I think, who's more into common sense solutions than promoting a political or a special interest agenda.
So give people a little bit about your background, Chris.
I will. And let me just close out the point, though. There's 5 of us. The top 2 will go on no matter party affiliation.
Okay.
So it's called the Jungle Primary. That means out of the 5 of us, the 2 top vote getters move on to the general election in November.
So it could be 2 Democrats, it could be 2 Republicans, or 1 of each.
Exactly.
It's just whoever gets the most votes, they go on and compete in November.
The top 2 compete in November.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So my background. I spent my entire career in Homeland Security as an attorney. I was in U.S. Customs and Border Protection, very important agency protecting our borders.
What does an attorney do at Homeland Security? I'm curious. I don't know. I know what enforcers do.
Yeah.
They go round up people or try and keep people from coming in, or I don't know.
It's a great question. I liken it to, for those from a corporate background, it's like in-house counsel would be for a company. Except for instead of the company, it's a national security organization. But we handled all the legal issues that came in, from the employment law to the personal injury claims to the criminal prosecutions to the customs to the immigration issues. Any legal issue that came in, we were the one-stop shop. Now, if cases went to litigation, just like a in-house counsel would be for a company, they would refer it to private counsel that specializes in litigation. For us, we would refer it to the Department of Justice.
So, Chris, just so people know, when you say you spent a whole career, give us a timeline. Like, what year to what year?
Okay. So I got in. I was living in Washington, D.C. I was working close to the Pentagon. I was getting a graduate law degree at Georgetown University Law Center.
School.
Great school.
Yep.
And D.C. was an exciting place to be. Then 9/11 happened. I was very close to the Pentagon. I saw the effects of the plane hitting. I had friends who were part of first responders who went to the Pentagon and helped rescue people, and that hit close to home. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my legal career, Rod, but that really set a light bulb off in my head, and I said,
You were in school at the time?
I was still finishing up, getting my degree, and working part-time at a law firm.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what type of law I wanted to go into. I was like a lot of people who go to law school who just go there because they weren't good at science, so they wanted to keep going to school, so they go to law school. So I was continuing my education, and I suddenly saw something where I could be of service. I could help protect people. That was a deep passion of mine that was sort of awakened by this. And I said, send me anywhere. And I might have told you this, but I mean, I said... So
you were close to ground zero. I mean, it's almost like
yeah.
when somebody asks, where were you when the Kennedy assassination happened? Where were you when 9/11 happened? You were pretty close to ground zero.
I was right there.
Yeah.
And so I saw those effects firsthand. And I wanted to be on the front lines. And so I was thinking the front lines were New York or L.A. maybe.
Sure.
And they sent me to El Paso, Texas, which was a blessing in disguise, absolutely a blessing in disguise.
Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah,
How
because
so?
Well, a lot of times people know of El Paso. The stop on I-10 as you're heading out to L.A. maybe, and you get gas, and then you just keep on going because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
So when were you in El Paso?
Got there in 2003.
Okay.
And this was right when DHS, Department of Homeland Security, was stood up and Customs and Border Protection was created, merging the U.S. Customs Service and the former INS.
Part of the Patriot Act.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
under George W. Bush.
Under George W. Bush, so that I was a Republican administration that I came in under, and but it was a blessing in disguise because that was the front lines of the border protection effort.
Right.
And I got to see firsthand the struggles of the immigrants and why they were coming into the United States. And there were so many families that were cross-border and knew people on both sides, right? And so you got a sensitivity for why folks would risk life and limb to bring their kids here, say.
Yeah.
But also, I worked daily with Border Patrol agents, and I saw what amazing people they were, and Customs and Border Protection officers who work at ports of entry. And I felt like I was part of something that was bigger than myself. And the things that I found to be most rewarding were when we were dismantling those human trafficking organizations, freeing people who had been smuggled and were working like slaves, like forced labor, to pay off those smuggling fees. And when we were, from an economic perspective, stopping companies from bringing in counterfeit merchandise or underpaying their customs duties that hurt U.S. companies.
Which, by the way, for people that think this only happens in Texas, I want to give a shout out to a former guest and a friend of mine, Rima Neshashibi, who basically has a anti-child human trafficking nonprofit and Global 360, I think it's, or 365, Global 365. And basically, it's happening in our own backyard in San Diego.
Yes.
So this is not just in another state, people.
Yes.
So it's very important what you were doing.
Right. And the bottom line is vulnerable people being taken advantage of. And I realize now, right? Exactly. Yeah. I realize now that that's a real cause of mine. Now, what happened in the last few years was when the administration changed, the priorities became much more focused on the immigration side of the house, and there were policies that came out that, frankly, didn't comport with my sort of moral compass. And it started with the travel ban, which.
Where were you in the travel ban? Were you still in Texas?
I was not in Texas. I'd moved around a bunch of times.
Okay.
I was now heading a legal office in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And that covered the whole western side of the United States.
Yeah, because it was that basically hit us very hard. I mean, there was a lot of uproar and a lot of activism that went in when that happened.
Sure.
In California.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there were folks that were in the air when it went into effect, that were lawful permanent residents that got caught up in it. And we worked to make sure that the people who should be allowed in got waivers and came in. And I felt like, to go to your earlier point, I was being a productive force in the government. The thing that happened that changed the paradigm for me was when the child separation policy started. And frankly, I'm a father of 3 young children. Getting a little choked up thinking about it, to be honest with you.
I don't know how you don't.
Exactly.
To be honest.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I was seeing that my colleagues, my law enforcement colleagues, were being obligated to separate children from their parents, to cage them. These are things that go against my fundamental beliefs. And imagining, I joke around with some people, we lost my daughter Olivia, who's now 6, for about a half an hour in Maui, and it was the worst half an hour of my life.
Yeah, any child that any parent that has lost a child,
yes,
for a very short duration of time. So imagine if you're being separated from your child. And to be honest, it got nothing to do with side of the political aisle it is.
Sure.
This is just absolutely fundamentally wrong.
Right. It's not humane. It's not empathetic.
Right.
And we are.
I would even go as far as saying it's cruel.
Sure. And so it broke my heart to see the agency that I had invested my whole 16-year career in and had taken so much pride in. Look, we stopped terrorists from attacking the country. We were successful. I was successful in building teams, and I was part of teams and directed teams that did that protected us from a foreign terrorist force. But now I saw that this agency that I loved so much was engaged in this, and all of the litigation, by the way, was in San Francisco. So I got to sort of front lines on how all those things developed. And at some point, and thanks to my wife, Haley, who I think is listening, who's an amazing supporter, just the greatest woman ever.
Hi,
Haley. She said, Chris, your true cause may not be here, right? You may have to break that government thinking, oh, I'm just going to ride through till my pension kicks in. The benefits are wonderful. The pay is steady. To break that malaise and say, Chris, could you do something more? Could you get back to that part of yourself that was so much part of your identity, protecting vulnerable people, standing up for people who need somebody to stand up for them, even at personal cost, Rod, right? Because when I stepped away, it was at personal cost. It wasn't a smart financial decision. So my financial
well, the true measure of a man is not when things are going well. It's when you have an adversity in a situation where you actually have to come face to face. There are some people out there maybe that can look at themselves in the mirror in the morning and basically be okay with whatever they're putting out in the world. And there's some of us that basically can't. Sure. And it really, when nobody's looking, and you're the only one evaluating what your actions are when it comes to something like this, and when it's actually having an adverse, genuinely negative impact on somebody's existence, how do you basically equate that, and how do you go on with your own life basically being ignorant or even turning a blind eye?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very fundamental. It's got nothing to do with anything politicized or weaponized or whatever. I would even venture to say not only ethical, but spiritual.
Yes. There was a spiritual aspect.
Yeah, how do you even call yourself? And it doesn't matter what the religion is, right?
Yes.
All of them have the same tenet.
Yeah.
I am my brother's keeper. You leave it better than you found it. You do not basically go out of your way to systemize cruelty.
Yeah.
And basically apply it to children.
Exactly.
Can I ask you a question? Because we hear so many conflicting reports, and you were there.
Yeah.
So we have a rare opportunity to talk about it, and we know your position, and you didn't care for the new policy. Let me just walk through what I understand of it, and correct me if I'm wrong. So crossing the border illegally is not a felony. It's a misdemeanor. Is that correct?
In most cases, yes, unless you've crossed the border previously and been removed. But for most cases, it's a misdemeanor. It's their first time offense, and they haven't been removed before.
And what's the typical fine for a misdemeanor if you do go through the process and get? Most of them were never prosecuted; they were just returned or put on, sent out.
Usually they're pled out,
Okay.
So they don't actually go to trial or anything like that. So there's a plea deal, and sort of they.
But there must be a civil penalty then for this misdemeanor.
There's not a monetary penalty usually imposed. It's just you get the misdemeanor on your record.
And then what happens? So if you're found you crossed, then they just because my understanding is that previously, because there were a lot of people coming and because it was a misdemeanor, they never prosecuted this. So therefore they didn't imprison people.
Sure.
And the reason they had to separate the children was because now under the new administration they said, no, we want these people put in jail while their case is being considered. And in that process you can't put children in jail, so we have to take the children
and let's remember part of the reason of why people weren't prosecuted, why this was not actually held to such a tight, principled position. Part of it is because that was cheap labor. And there were a lot of industries that were benefiting from that. In fact, probably a lot of them that weren't paying taxes for or like having, workers' comp or any of those things. So there was a less cost. Okay. I read something yesterday. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's worth basically using as a counterpoint here, right? We talk about illegal immigration as being a one-directional thing.
Right.
Meaning it's coming from Mexico or the southern border and entering into pristine United States. Okay? I read something the other day because anybody who lives anywhere near the border knows this to be somewhat of a true fact. There's a lot of American expats in Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? That own and basically retire in Mexico.
I know a lot of them.
Right?
Yeah.
Cabo, Laredo, Sea of Cortez, because of the cost of living being such that you can extend your dollar further. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I read something where 91% of Americans that reside in Mexico are illegal. So I'm not sure about the number, but just let's think about that in principle, right? We are so adamant about spending taxpayer money to build the wall to stop the flow this way. Right. Meanwhile, we encourage people to go retire in Mexico, and how many of them actually have the proper paperwork in order to pay taxes as Mexican citizens?
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably true. Look, to get back to the point.
So is that so my point is we have a hypocritical look at things.
I agree.
So let's just go back. I just want to walk through the time frame. And so it's my understanding that the new administration said, and it's no secret I'm not a fan of the new administration, of the Trump administration.
Shocked.
That they said, we're going to, we're going to prosecute all of these, and that means that when we detain them, we're not going to release them and hope that they come back because they'll melt into society and we'll never see them again. So we're going to make them all imprisoned, and because there's no facility for children in prisons, the children had to be taken somewhere else. How many children were removed from the parents roughly?
Thousands. I don't know the exact number, but let me.
One more point, and then I'll let you talk here. And then the other thing is because we weren't prepared for this, we sent those children all over the country,
right?
And they don't know where they're all at, and they don't know how they're going to reunite them with their parents.
But you know what, though, Paul? We did the same thing with Katrina. We did the same thing with people that were displaced because of natural disasters. We did the same thing with Puerto Rico.
But just think about this for a second.
But I want to point this out. Okay,
we've taken children out. We've put them someplace. We don't even know where they're all at, and we don't know how to get them back to their parents.
This wasn't done. Any of these actions, and I want to bring it back to what Chris started off with, but none of these actions are done by this faceless, right, machinery.
Right.
It's actually human beings that are partaking in the execution of this policy.
Okay.
Right?
Well, let me
so
address
your own
quick.
personal value system
comes into play.
So,
and they did it to. It seems like they didn't say it publicly. And last point I'll make is they wanted it to be cruel because they thought this would
be a deterrent.
Sure, I think that's part of it. First of all, let me say you will not hear me speak badly of a Border Patrol agent or a Customs and Border Protection officer that took part in this. These were lawful orders, and they are committed to protecting the country, and they have a chain of command, right? And so you won't find if people are looking for me to do that, I won't be doing that. And I'm all for border security.
That's their role.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm all for border security, by the way. There were people, by the way, who could have stood up who didn't.
Yeah.
And that drove me crazy, right? And that's one of the reasons I ended up leaving. But yeah, we used to voluntarily return is the technical term, folks, without prosecuting them, and then they would come back 20, 30 times sometimes before they ever got prosecuted. And so, sure, should we take some action against folks who repeatedly come in illegally like that? Yes. But should we ever do anything where we cause irreparable harm to a child in the interest of some kind of enforcement action? No.
No, and anybody who doubts that, look at your grandchild. Look at your child in your own home. Look at and think about if you actually lost them at the mall for half an hour, let alone day upon day upon day. Right. Okay, and the thing here's the thing though, Chris. I completely agree with you. I mean, as far as these people are in that job, they're basically getting orders. There are certain people that should have stood up that are maybe in a position where that would have meant something, right? But the thing about this is, and this is what sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. Okay, we get so caught up in the policy that we don't question the effectiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's not an effective policy.
Yeah.
Even if your intention is to deter illegal immigration, this is not a deterrent. This does not work. You know, it's like putting up the wall.
Right.
Okay, are you going down 50 feet underground to eliminate tunnels?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't work, right?
People will always find a way to a better life.
Right, but because you said it, and you didn't really elaborate on it, but you said it, is that when you were there in El Paso, you got to see why people would risk that. And you just said it now. You just explained it now. It's the quality of life.
Yeah.
It's opportunity. You sitting in a part of the United States where you think you can move to another part of the United States to improve your lot and improve the possibility for your children's future.
Exactly.
You will do it, and you will take the risk to do it.
Exactly. And that's what I did.
No different.
By the way, when I left the agency, right? Because a lot of people said, well, how are you going to support your children? You lose this comfortable government job with all those benefits. People close to me said that. But it was because of my children that I did it. Because it was the right thing to do, right?
Someday you're going to have to face them, right?
Exactly.
Hey, Chris, what did you do when that was going on?
What did you do when you were faced with the decision between the right thing to do and the comfortable thing to do? And the right thing to do came with some personal cost. Were you willing to make that sacrifice?
So what did you do afterwards? How did you end up here then?
So
when was that, Chris?
That was over the summer, essentially 2019.
Okay.
And so what happened is, I had always been interested in politics, but there's a law called the Hatch Act that prevents federal government employees from being involved in politics, and that's for good reason. We don't want our civil servants politically motivated. We see the effects of that.
Yeah, if anybody's doubting whether that's a good idea or not, just turn on the news.
We don't want that. And by the way, partisanship is going to be the end of us. I don't care what party you're in. Picking sides and trying to bludgeon the other side down and then triumphing is no way to have a long-term strategy for success in a country. We need to come together.
What's that old adage about an eye for an eye makes everybody blind?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Right.
And so, look, I hadn't been politically active. I had worked under both administrations. I saw the hyper-partisanship going on in California, and and I thought, okay, if I step away from this, will I be able to get involved? Yes. So it was like I was free to now pursue this inner passion I had and continue to serve, and continue to stand up for people who needed someone to stand up for them in a different role, though. And so when I looked in my community and I saw that there was an opportunity to run for state assembly, and frankly, the race was a little opened up, a little bit different than people had thought because there were some allegations against the incumbent, I looked around and I said, okay, where's the candidate who just runs on the good ideas, who's not running on a political platform, who's running on things that make sense for the greater community, who's fairly fiscally conservative and fairly socially liberal. Didn't see that candidate.
I think you just defined California, basically.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I didn't see that candidate. And so, it's kind of one of those things. You look around, you wait for someone to step forward, then you decide, I'm the one who has to step forward. I have to get in the arena. I have to get off the sideline and make a difference and get involved.
So I got to ask you a personal question. When you got to that point, okay, because we don't get a chance to really ask this a lot, okay, but I think I'm going to do this more and more this year, is how did that decision, because you made a decision of yourself, and I get that. It's like that personal calling. Okay, you got to step up, right?
Yeah.
How do you then, and I want you to get a little bit personal here, Chris, right? How do you then navigate that, bring it up for a conversation to your support system, to your wife, to your kids? How do you do that? And what was that like? Was there a discussion? Was there a sort of a hesitation, then an embracement? Could you share some of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, first of all, I have this incredibly supportive wife. I was speaking to people who were active in politics, and their first question to me always was, what does your significant other think about this? Are they 100%? I said, well, my wife's 110%. She sees something bigger in me than I even see in myself.
If you don't do it.
Exactly. And my wife's kind of the tough love, like sports coach type of wife. She's not the coddler. She's more of the kick in the butt and get going kind of wife. And I needed that. So that was the very first and most important thing, was that significant other seeing something for me that I didn't see in myself.
Yeah.
And
getting choked up.
Yeah, I mean, sure, because, look, here's what I realized, Rod. We set our own limiting beliefs.
We argue for our own limitations.
We set our own limitations.
Yeah, we do.
And I had built an elaborate system of limitations as being part of the government. And nothing against civil service. I think it's wonderful. But it was a great excuse for me to limit where I saw myself going.
That's part of the comfortable.
Exactly.
Got cushy, secure. I can retire.
Life.
Complacent. Yeah.
And so it took a heck of a lot, Rod, to break through that, to be honest with you. My wife was a great starting point, but I had to wrestle with that myself. And you know what the biggest thing was? Fear, self-doubt. Just feeling like, I can't do this. That's for somebody else. That's not who I am. What if people make fun of me? What if people criticize me because I've got this family and now how am I going to support them? All of those things I had to wrestle with, and it wasn't a quick thing. It was a nightly, sleepless nightly series of struggles. And, the thing I can say about that for people who struggle with those kind of things, and I think it's almost all of us, is read the books, right? There's plenty of books out there, and not every book clicks with you, but you'll get something from a lot of those books.
That's part of the process. I think.
Sure.
I don't think you can avoid that as part of your journey and your sort of your raised awareness.
Exactly. Educate yourself.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, I think that's part of it. Right. And I think if you go through that, then on the other end of it is the benefit of having gone through it also plays out.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, right. I mean, because it is. We've said it. It's a gauntlet. It's daunting.
So I have to ask one more question. We had somebody from the other side on who's been on here numerous times. Greg Rath, mayor of Mission Viejo.
He's a friend. Yeah, show friend.
And
shout out for Greg. Yeah.
And he said when he decided he felt a similar call that he came back to the community, having been in the Marines and all this stuff. He said he didn't even know how to run, so he had to Google it.
Yeah,
he had to look it up. How do you even apply to run?
So with that being said, Paul, again, I will repeat what I started off with this show is, imagine the determination and the drive and the commitment, regardless which side of the aisle you are, that you would put yourself through that. Like in the case of Greg, where he would actually Google how he's going to run. In the case of Chris, where he's basically internally having this, not necessarily a conflict, but this dialogue going on, and trying to come to terms with this. Okay, imagine what it takes to actually put yourself into position where you run for office. So before you basically lambast anybody from a simple position of talking points or bullshit, and I'm going to call it what it is bullshit, right? Think about, what if you were in that position? Would you even do that? Would you even put yourself in that position? And if you don't, then at least show them some respect for the fact that they're putting themselves through that gauntlet for your benefit. Right. For your benefit. They're running for a position to be of public service.
Yes.
Let's talk about the other hurdle then that keeps everybody from doing so. You talked about find somebody else other than me. No, it's got to be me. And then the challenge of, well, how do I know how to do this? I haven't been politically involved. I'm an ordinary citizen who feels a call to step up and do this. The money. It must take a lot of money. I had a friend who ran, I won't say who, ran for a water board seat. And similarly felt called. He was a tired guy, and he said, damn it, I think this is the right cause, the right time, and I think I'm the guy to do it. And somebody said, great, it's going to cost you, pick some figure, $500,000 or something. And he's like, for a water board dish, it doesn't even pay anything.
Yeah.
So you get a little stipend if you show up for some meetings. What's the expected cost of this race? And how do you find that money? And it's the part everybody hates and fears about all these elections.
Well, I think that's maybe the cold towel across the face part of the race, right, that you learn early on is the fundraising part that you never hear about. People, I think they mysteriously think you just sort of, all of a sudden, there's some money that's just
you just appear.
It just appears, right? Hey, here's your $50,000. Run your campaign.
Those yard signs
exactly.
drop on your driveway.
Exactly. They just drop them off.
Slates. This is
the flyers appear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The flyers, the staff, right? You have your treasurer and your campaign manager, and so here's what I'll say. Bottom line about that, and I don't know if Greg had a different experience. Yeah, I had no idea how to run, of course. And not I shouldn't, because again I was not allowed to be politically inactive, so I wasn't even allowed to talk to a political advisor essentially until I was out of the government.
Right.
So that's why I got in the race late. Here's what happens when you believe in yourself. People come out of the woodwork to believe in you, and they will put up money to support you. It's been incredible. I mean, there's no dollar figure for me. Yeah, I mean, I've set dollar amounts that I wanted to hit, and we've come very close. I'm proud to say I don't have, all of my contributions have been from individual contributors. I don't have a single contribution from any club, organization, entity,
super PAC, developers,
nothing.
All this.
And I'm still hanging with the other candidates.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question too, because you're running on a particular party platform, right?
Yeah.
And how has it been? Because I'm going to be fair. Like I said, I'm equal opportunity griller, right? There is a conflict going on in that party.
Yeah.
Right. On a national level, there is a sense of loyalty to maybe people that are more institutionalized in the party and stuff like that. Right. So we just said you got 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats running, including one that's in addition to another Republican who's an incumbent.
Yeah.
How was the reception from the Democratic Party of Orange County?
Well, look, there's people.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask the question.
That's the toughest question of the day, there, Rod. It's been mixed, because here's the thing: the endorsements were already out when I got in the race, right? And so there's a lot of people who are sort of already pledged, and they couldn't really change their endorsement, and that put them in some uncomfortable position.
Like, what are you doing? Why are you putting me in this position?
Exactly. Why would you do this? Why would you potentially split the vote? We already have our endorsed candidate. Let's make it easy. Let's not hurt anybody's feelings. Let's not make anybody uncomfortable.
Yeah, go run for something else.
Exactly. Run for something in 2022. But see, I didn't do this because it was a political calculation, right? I didn't do this because I crunched the numbers or somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, here's your race, Chris." I did it because it was the right thing. And when I talked to folks, many of them, almost all of them, have now come on board essentially supporting me, right? These folks who put up initial roadblocks and said, "Why are you doing this? We already have somebody else." And here's where I come from. I don't lead with the party, right? I just lead with, I think we need more civility. We need more willingness to work across the aisle. That's why it's on my campaign card. I'll listen to anybody. I don't care what side or fringe of the party system they come from, I know we have common ground, and I focus on that. And I think the Democratic candidate and Republican candidates need to be more like that. That's our road to future success.
By the way, we used to do that.
Exactly.
We used to do that when we weren't so basically shackled by blind loyalty. We actually used to do that. There was such a term as reaching across the aisle. There were bipartisan bills.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you. I want you to repeat again. So, with that being said, why now? Like, what is the basic motivation for why you're running now?
Right.
And what are the issues that you're focusing on that you didn't think were being dealt with for South Orange County?
Well, yeah. So why now is, again, the representation for South Orange County has not been there. It's like we don't have any voice.
Well, we regard. I remember when I went to design school in Newport Beach. Okay, I would tell people that I live in San Clemente, and they'd go, "Where's that?" This is 91, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'd say, "Well, where San Juan Capistrano is? Oh, yes, the Mission." It's
Right.
like that's the only friggin' thing down there, right? I'm like 15 minutes south of that, and they'd look at me like, "You poor child," or you're like abandoned at in the back 40.
Yes.
Right. So there is a provincial leaning or a sense of like Orange County as a whole used to be filtered through this sort of provincial filter, and South County was the red-headed stepchild of the provincial filter, right?
Even more so now.
And it's and it's really funny because it's an area that's very affluent.
Yes.
15% of the people that live in Orange County live in that district. You've got people that are educated, diverse, multicultural backgrounds.
That's where all the growth is happening.
That live in that area. And we used to, when people would tell me, "Oh, you poor child, like, why San Clemente?" I'd say, "You keep thinking that."
Right. Exactly.
You just keep thinking that, right?
You wanted to stay under the radar.
Right. And at that point, there wasn't even a 73 freeway. So, the only way was like either the 5 or the PCH, right?
Yeah.
But so I totally get what you're saying is that we are basically not really represented the way we should be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to drive the point home that you said, people talk about the beaches. They think about the beaches. They think about the beautiful areas and say San Eliso or Mission Viejo, the parks. But what makes this South County incredible is the people who have shepherded and maintained that incredible culture and the personality. There's
a defiant under layer to South County. There is a individualized,
and it cuts across all party lines, right?
Exactly.
It's not ideological. It is an understanding of this incredible place we live in. How do we maintain it?
Right. If anybody doesn't believe that it cuts across party lines, think about a topic called the TCA, which I basically have talked about ad nauseum, right? That cut across party lines. It didn't matter. It was issue-based.
Sure. Yes.
It was issue-based.
What's the right thing for the community?
Right, and it was issue-based and it was people-based.
Right.
So if you were basically supporting something across party lines, you were now persona non grata because you were basically championing something that was going to be harmful to people, period.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, along those lines, right? So, and to get back to the point, there hasn't been, to my mind, effective representation in Sacramento. Regardless of the party you're in, there's nothing coming back from Sacramento for South Orange County.
And by the way, I want to say this. I'm not necessarily knocking Bill for this. Okay, Bill is from further north. I think he's Huntington Beach, right?
He's from Dana Point.
Oh, he's from Dana Point. Sorry, but Bill's from Dana Point. But you have also where I'm going with this is a part of that district. That South County district area. That part has evolved.
Yeah.
Substantially.
Yes.
I've been in San Clemente since 87.
Right.
Okay? You couldn't tell people that were born in the last 5 or 10 years what South County used to be like in 87.
Right.
Okay? I mean, there was nothing. There was no Spectrum. There was nothing on Oso.
Right.
You had strawberry fields where the Spectrum was, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Rancho Santa Margarita. Where the hell was that, right?
Yes, just starting out. And
you needed a visa to get there.
Well, and how about this? I used to play basketball at Capo Beach.
Yeah.
At the basketball court that's no longer there.
That's
Talking about changing.
Talking
about changing, right? And how climate change and the environment is affecting us, which is a whole other issue. But yeah, the area has come a long way.
And that's another topic that I think cuts across political lines.
I think it does too. And so the bottom line for all of this is we need someone in Sacramento who's used to bringing different people together to get something done. That's what I did my whole career at DHS. That's what I would do in Sacramento. And it would be ideas-based, common sense plans. I don't care who came up with the idea. If it's a good idea, I will push for it. If the people in my party are against it, I will still push for it. I will stand up to those folks from my own party who tell me that, oh, no, we want you to back off. No, if it's a good plan for South Orange County, I would stand up for it. That's what I've always done. And so I think we need someone like that.
And what are the issues that you see aren't being addressed in South Orange County?
Well, you touched a little bit on the climate.
Right. And I think there's certainly things that we need to be thinking and be on the cutting edge of in South Orange County. One of them is the community control of our electrical grid. So there's community choice aggregation. That's happening in Irvine. We've been, I think, hesitant to think about it in San Clemente, but now that Irvine's jumping in, all of a sudden, right, people don't want to miss out on a good thing. Well, there's that FOMO, right?
I think the other thing that is sort of problematic for Orange County is that we actually believe in some ways that we're still that little provincial area, which we are not.
Right.
But so we still compromise, like we're that provincial area. Exactly. Oh, we're lucky to have this.
So you brought up an issue I've never heard of. I live in South Orange County, and I don't even know what you're talking about. What is this aggregate or whatever you just said there?
Well, it's thinking outside the box for electricity, right, for our power. Look, I think we can maintain the personality that makes South Orange County great, but we can be on the cutting edge of things that will improve the community and cut costs, frankly. It makes economic sense.
So how does it, I don't even know what it is.
So what it is right now, in San Clemente at least, and I think it changes, I think, after San Juan, but we are SDG&E, and then it goes up to Edison. What it is instead of just getting all of your power from the power company, the community by city decides we want to get a certain percentage or all of our electricity from solar. And so while you still have the utility there to deliver the power, the generation side comes from a different source. And guess what? In cities that have started this, and it's being spearheaded in San Diego right now with a Republican mayor, it cuts costs. Because it ends up that solar is actually cheaper, and delivering power locally instead of bringing power in from a generator that's a long way away is more expensive. Now, do the power companies like this? Not really. Now, they still make money on the delivery, but they don't make as much money as they did before, right? So you're going up against a lot of
billions or trillions of dollars connecting the grid in all the western states, and they're generating it from Arizona.
Exactly.
We had a power outage a couple years ago in Rancho Santa Margarita, and it was due to a generator that failed in Arizona, I believe.
Guess what happens with community choice aggregation? It's locally based, right? So that power outage that affects folks who are out there close to Arizona doesn't affect the people because you're getting your power locally.
Well, and for the people who say, well, where am I going to put this, right? It's going to be an eyesore. Sure. Next time you drive by the freeway, and if you're going south in San Clemente, look on the Estrella side and see how many flat roofs you've got on top of commercial buildings.
Sure.
Okay.
All those could be
right. That could be generating the electrical requirements for that particular shopping center, but also then providing extra electrical power into the basket that can be shared.
So is this being done anywhere? You said in Irvine?
Irvine is, I believe, the first major city, at least in Orange County, that's doing it, but it's happening in San Diego. They're further down the road, and they've seen costs cut. It makes economic sense, which is what Orange County people, I think, really focus on a lot.
Responsibility.
And there's a lot of small businesses, particularly in South Orange County, they want responsibility, and so that should make sense to them. Hey, wait a minute, we could do something that not only protects the environment, which we all want, because
fiscally responsible, local control,
and environmentally friendly. And so it's something that we should all pay attention to, and I think there is a lot of our city leaders are having meetings right now and talking about those kind of things.
By the way, Paul, you said but they've spent so much money on the grid and all this stuff. I'll share this with you. Okay, you could argue, and I know it's not an apples to apples thing, but you could argue that Kodak was pissed off as hell that they were not in the film industry anymore, right? But now they're basically doing what? They're selling ink for printers and basically paper. And I mean, things change.
Yes.
So the fact that you are a utility company that now becomes a distribution channel versus a producer isn't necessarily...
Have you ever read Simon Sinek? The author, this is sort of what he says, right? He says, have a cause. Don't get so caught up in the details.
Right.
So maybe SDG&E's cause or Edison's cause is to deliver power to the most people for the most affordable price.
Right. Affordable
and still make money.
Affordable power in every household.
Exactly.
A chicken in every pot.
And now you find out there's another way to do it.
Right.
That where you still make a lot of money and you're still successful.
So why has this is the first? I sit here all day, listen to a cross current of conversations.
Oh, and then we also don't need to bury rods in the sand at San Onofre.
And we can get into that too. But
So-
you're saying, why is this the first time you've heard of it?
Yes.
It is fairly new. And look, there's powerful lobbies against this. There's folks with lots of
Special
money
interest. People are making money on it.
who do not want the system changed. And not to call out the companies, but our electrical companies, our gas companies, they're making a lot of money as the system is set now. They don't want us to go to a place where they're making a lot less money. So they're going to pour money into politicians and other folks to try and push it back a bit against this. Now, I think it's such a good idea that it's going to push through.
Well, yeah, that's the inevitability of history, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like saying, oh, you know what? We need to go back to coal mining because the cost of black lung is not really an issue given what we're going to get out of it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't care about whether you want mining or not. The efficiency of the process has changed because of time.
Yeah.
So, it's the same thing with the car manufacturing. I remember those promises about, jobs coming back to the automobile industry and the companies were going to invest money. And anybody who had the smallest brain cell in their head realized that the money that was going to be invested was going to be invested in automation.
Right.
That meant that less jobs were going to be had.
Right.
But the jobs that were going to be had were probably going to be higher paying.
Right.
But required retraining, right?
Exactly.
So things change. Look at history. If you're a student of history, these
So
things are inevitable.
we're
Be
whipping-
ahead of the curve on that stuff.
We're whipping through a show. There's a dramatic one. You impressed me. You came up with one I never heard of, a creative solution that's being bantied about that I never.
He's
heard
technically
about.
a voter, right?
I'm one of your voters.
There you go. Yeah.
I live in your district.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So give me another one.
Another cutting edge
Or another
issue or any other issue?
another issue that you think is not being addressed in South Orange County.
You know what's funny, Paul, is to Chris's credit and point here. Those are things that we don't hear, right? Like this is the outside the box thinking that has a direct impact on our quality of life.
Right.
But we don't hear that.
Because
We
it's a
hear the
good idea.
regurgitated,
not a special
talking
interest
points,
idea.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not furthering anyone's agenda. Well, other than the community's agenda, right? My fellow citizens' agenda, our agenda, right?
What else isn't being addressed in South Orange County? In your
Homelessness,
There's a big one.
right? And so, look, we could talk,
Effectively.
we could do a whole, effectively, we could do a whole hour on that, but we won't. I'll just say this: homelessness. You need a plan. You don't just throw money at a problem like that. It's a very complex, multifaceted problem.
hold on. It's the next cash cow instead of the TCA. I mean,
Yes.
Rod's convinced that all the consultants are going to make billions
Yes.
off of
hey,
studying this.
listen,
thing here.
I'm not
Yes.
knocking it. If you
consultant
are in
class.
that industry,
Sure.
there's gold in
growth
their hills.
industry.
The way that it's a growth industry.
Yeah. Well,
It's interesting you say that because I say this all the time to people, and I don't know why more people don't pick up on this. In our highly politicized environment, I hear left and right come in here all the time.
Yeah.
Very little they.
It's not about blue or red. It's
know, but-
about green.
Right, but so here's to my point, to that point. Every issue but homelessness, there is a complete disagreement, two sets of facts, anything you want to talk about. The climate being a perfect example. Oh, it's not a problem. It is a problem. No, it's
Right.
natural cycle. No, it's not.
Well, because they haven't figured out a way to make money at the climate. Then
But
otherwise they would agree.
When you talk about homelessness, every Republican mayor, every Democratic legislator, every sheriff, every business group, every church group that comes through here all say it's a problem and we got to fix it for different reasons. Maybe it's because it's affecting
Paul,
businesses or it's affecting
when did they start saying that? The last couple of years?
Last couple of
Yeah,
years.
you know why? Because they got their butt kicked because of the fact that they've ignored it and kicked the can down the road and have an abdication of leadership on every level in this county.
Well, Judge Carter, the famous judge,
when
forced
Judge
them
Carter
to-
basically
right.
told them, look, you see those people at the Santa Ana River?
Right.
Yeah, you can't ignore them anymore, right? And they poo-pooed and they huffed and puffed and they tried to basically ignore it and they pushed up against Judge Carter. It's a human condition that they've ignored. And now that they are all coalescing and everybody, oh, it's a problem. Well, we need money. Okay, we're going to fix this problem. If all we do is generate white papers and pay consultants
We'll have another
to
great
come
park.
up with projects, exactly, we will have the great park. This is not our first debacle.
Right. Well, look, we could again talk about
It's still a problem that
specifics
needs
of
to
the
be
plan.
addressed.
Sure. We could talk about the specifics of the plan. It would take us through another hour. But I'll say this: I think we need to fundamentally come from the same perspective, right? We need to set the goal before we start down any plan or throw any more money at it. And to me, the goal should be to have these people find ultimately permanent housing.
Right.
To get them to a life that's fulfilling and productive if we can.
But you can't wave a magic wand to get there. There has to be steps along the way.
But the goal, I think, has been short-sighted. Let's just get them off this street. Let's get them off this beach. Let's get them out of this train station.
Let's get them
out of this. That's a short-term
very
solution.
Expensive Band-Aid.
Exactly. And they're just going to come back if you do that. You have to take that holistic perspective.
Right.
The goal is to take these people with their multifaceted problems, their diverse issues, and give them the best chance to succeed. And if they refuse, if they ultimately do, then I do believe, and I come from law enforcement, that there must be a law enforcement solution. Ultimately, the community should not have to allow someone to just camp in a public park or on a public beach because they just choose to do that.
So what do you say? What do you say? Because this is very much an issue that's very paramount in San Clemente. And the feelings are very heightened both sides on this, right? What do you say to a situation where we have an absolute resistance to building a shelter?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And therefore an absolute resistance to complying with state law to take care of that on a local level, and we do everything in our power to basically push that off because it's an unpopular solution.
The NIMBY.
The NIMBY solution, right?
And yet your community in San Clemente is willing to spend money to fight legal battles to...
Right. When we basically voted people in on the platform that they were going to be against waste on a legal level by the city, here we are again spending money to fight this and combat it on a legal level.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing for me was when we basically agreed to add more law enforcement.
Yeah.
And then turn around and have that law enforcement say we cannot basically enforce the public camping laws,
right? Because of
your Boise case.
Yeah, the Boise case and sort of the position you put us. Yeah, well, look, I've talked to folks about this.
Waste of time, waste of money, no real solution.
Yeah,
we still have a visible problem.
Right. Well, I think though that in fairness to places like San Clemente. San Clemente shouldn't have to bear the burden because it's an attractive place for homeless people to go.
Right.
Right. So there's that. Does San Clemente need to be a part of it? Yeah, a lot of the South County cities need to be a part of it. But I personally think that the best way to come up with a shelter alternative, which there must be some temporary place to bring people.
Right.
You've got to have that, short of jail. A place with the resources, mental health treatment, substance abuse counselors, and so forth. And that place, I think, the county is frankly in the best position to run that. This is a bigger than a South.
Well, at this point, it's a county problem.
It's a county problem, and so
it has been for a while.
Does that shelter need to be in San Clemente? I don't think the Boise case says that. Does it need to even be in South County? No. Let's put it in a place that makes the most sense, that's the most cost effective. Maybe it's
has
state
support
land,
services, has access, transportation.
But it's a place where social workers and, if necessary, the sheriffs can help escort people to, provide them that assistance to try to, again, get them into permanent housing. We got to keep our eye on the prize. That's the goal, right? Everybody's going to have a different potential answer, and the experts will be there, and they'll get down different tracks. The goal needs to be to put them in housing, not to get them off the beach.
But here's the conflict, because we've been talking, and I'm sure it's longer than this, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that it's a 2-year issue that's been going on.
Yeah.
Okay? That's 2 years. Okay? That's literally 104 weeks. Okay? That we've had people that are on the street.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue that all of them are degenerate drug users, whatever, right? If you scratch the surface of the homeless problem, you'll realize that one of the largest growing group is seniors.
Yeah.
That you have people that are basically single moms with kids.
Yeah.
Okay. That people are like on the razor's edge, one medical cost basically away from being homeless, right? And so you cannot just broad brushstroke the whole situation.
Veterans, you've talked about.
We got veterans.
A huge issue that Mike Levin is tackling.
Right. And so you can sit here and talk about this for 10 years.
Yeah.
There is a human cost that is paid by us as a society over that 10 years until you get comfortable enough to do something about it, right? So there has to be a time period deadline to deal with this. Otherwise, it's, again, a case of kicking it down the road.
Right.
We don't want to touch it because it gets closer to this election cycle.
Right.
I promise I'll deal with it next time, and then I don't, right?
Okay.
And meanwhile, the longer I stretch it out,
Right.
the more money is made by all those special interests.
Here's my 2 points on that. Again, that's because the eyes aren't on the prize. The prize is helping people.
Yeah.
The prize is empathy. That's what we are. That's who we are. We're people who take care of the most vulnerable people in our communities, even if they've got flaws. Here's the other part of it. Why is it not happening? Because it takes backbone and moral courage to make it happen. It takes somebody who's willing to risk their own political future, perhaps, to do the right thing. I'm that kind of person, right? We need more of that.
And how could you, as
Very
the
true.
state assembly, though, address with a county problem? Is it finding state money, state resources? Is it acting as somebody to try and get the cities that don't seem to want to work together on any solution? They're all fighting each other and opting out of countywide solutions, and especially in the South County, they've opted out of what other cities have decided to do, and everybody seems to be going their own. We got 34 different cities with 34 different ideas of how to handle this.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a firm believer in local control. So I do believe that the city councils are in the best position to understand where their cities are and to not do things that disrupt the culture, the incredible individual culture of their individual of their cities. But what we haven't had is someone who, with the force of will, the ability, and the track record of bringing people together who are different towards one single goal. Someone who's not affiliated with just one group or isn't paid off by special interest, and so they're going to just end up one way. You know, it's funny. A lot more than one person has asked me, what the heck does an assembly person do? Right? I mean, most people have no clue.
I don't think I really do as sophisticated
now, this
as I am.
is something
and the county supervisors will say, well, it's our role.
Right.
We're the supervisor.
So what
county.
what does an assembly person
So this is a perfect example. The funding comes from the state. The county is in the best position to manage, say, a homeless shelter. But the cities are the best position to understand the dynamics of their cities and how law enforcement and social workers are going to interact with the people that they have. And who are the people they have? Are they people with mental health issues? Are they just people with substance abuse and long-term homeless who are going to be resistant no matter what? So the cities are in the best position to understand that. The county's in the best position to manage it. The state is where the funding. Where's the link? It's the assembly person. That's a person who can step into the void and create that coalition. Get a plan from the cities that they can sell to the county. Once you've got that plan, then the county goes to the state and says, look, here's how we're going to deal with this problem. All that funding that's in the budget, send it our way. It doesn't get down to South County. It hasn't gotten. There hasn't been deliverables because there hasn't been somebody there who's got the ability to essentially market and sell what we've got going in South County effectively to the state folks.
we're an afterthought.
We're an afterthought. Why would they send resources down here? They're going to send them to places where people have been able to have a better connection with Sacramento and have sold it.
I'm going to ask you to make a
effectively.
hard thing to do. Maybe this is unfair of you to, but if Bill Brough were here, what would he say? If he was defending his record and say, well, but it ain't easy, or it's whatever. Or
I'm sure it's not easy. Yes, it's not like this is a simple fix. It takes a tremendous amount of work. But he would probably say, look, I have done a lot of work to try to build groups together, and because this is a supermajority Democratic state, they just haven't gone along with me. He might say that, right? Or I don't know what else he would say, and I would say, great, that's why you need a moderate Democrat or a centrist, independent-minded Democrat who cuts through all that and says, look, I'm not here for the party, but I am here for common sense ideas. I'm an independent thinker. I represent a lot of the small business interests of my area. Right, so I'm not going down to the far left side of the party, but because I would be running as a Democrat, I would have a voice. They would pay attention to me. I would be in the room where decisions are made.
That's actually a powerful point, because if you're trying to get somebody of influence there, Republicans are so out of influence in the state government, right or wrong, that if you really want to be practical about it, why we keep sending Republicans up to the state assembly?
If you want the same thing, and you think it's going fine, then there you go. But if you want to try something that might be more effective, then here I am.
Look, there's something to be said for a consciousness of when you are in a position of leadership and you find that you have gotten as far as you can get, that even if it may be effective or not, it may be time for somebody else to try.
Sure.
I got to try and end this because I got another show coming in here. So let's give you 5 minutes to wrap up because I got to get out of here.
Can we talk about the donuts?
Before we do that, what is this? You brought me lunch.
Yeah.
I know. It's like,
he's like every politician. He tried to bribe us here today. He brought us some donuts, but we refused to eat them, folks. We did not take the bribe.
Actually, there were a few more, I think, when I first brought them in here.
Yeah, I think they were before you handed it to Paul, actually. Tell me about the donuts.
Well, I was out, talking to voters and putting out signs and meeting with constituents on my way here. Mm-hmm. And one business that I have bonded with very early on was Scott's Donuts and Deli in Rancho Santa Margarita.
Shout out to Scott.
Well, it's Jenny Lou, actually, and her husband Tony Nguyen.
Very good, by the way.
Who own it. They are immigrants from Southeast Asia. They are a true American success story. They came here with virtually nothing as refugees, built this incredible local business that has a great following, put their kids through school. Education is very important to them. And the thing that caught my eye, though, was the incredible amount of donuts they donate to Camp Pendleton Marines every year.
You go. Wow.
They are one of the biggest contributors of food down to Camp Pendleton. I think there's Marine paraphernalia all over the shop. And that really caught my mind because, again, they're not acting as partisans. They're acting as good people, right? They wanted to give back to the people that matter the most to them, the people that protect them, the Marines. And so I stopped by. I was in the area, and I stopped by and I talked to Jenny today. And of course, she pushes these donuts on me. I can't get out of the store without these donuts. But I did want to support them as an incredible local business and just really giving back to the community, thinking about the community, and as someone who inspires me to be more like that, frankly. And so here's the donuts that they gave me, and I wanted to
Jenny.
So it's an American success story and an American, dream, basically.
Sure. Can I make a point that Rod drove home to me once, and I share it now all the time? I said it just the other day. Somebody was in here. That in this hyper partisan where the Trump and his newfound followers are demonizing immigrants, that immigrants aren't the problem, folks. Immigrants are the inspiration. Immigrants are why we are successful. We all came from an immigrant background. Most of us have forgotten our immigrant roots. Immigrants are not what made America bad. It's what made America great. Because as Rod said, they believe in the American story and keep fertilizing it and regenerating it. Even if it is a myth, they come here believing that hard work and opportunity.
We immigrants, and I believe it should be legal immigration, but I don't think we should be basically demonizing people that are looking for a better, a place. Send me you're tired for seeking to be free. Right. I mean, we actually, maybe dummies that we are, we actually believed the shtick.
Yeah.
Okay. We believed the story. We believed the PR. We believed about the shining city on the hill. We actually believed it.
Right.
Okay. And we came from places that are not necessarily evil, but we came from places where you didn't have that personal ability to voice your opinion, to vote, to weigh in, to actually even maybe, delusional as you may be, believe that one voice, one vote, right, makes a difference. And to see us here become more authoritarian is a real stab and real genuine sadness.
Right.
For immigrants.
And to say that we're full and we don't need any more. And to find ways to send people away from those, shithole countries. Or what. The idea is give us the bottom of the barrel and we'll take it and turn it into something. And it takes a couple of generations, but look what's created out of this. Well, Rod's created out of this. I'm created out of this. We're all created out of this.
I share your concerns.
And South Orange County, more than most communities in this country, is so ethnically diverse, has so many different immigrant groups who came here and didn't all fit in well or easily to each other, but we've made a community out of it, and we're so much richer because of it, and so much more successful because of the Jennys of the world.
It's time for us to consider ourselves not a melting pot, but a mixing pot, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, where the ingredients don't get dissolved into the brown mush of nondescript.
Right, but together we form something that's amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, here's a story. I was talking with a constituent the other day, voter who's from South Africa, and he confided to me he had grown up in apartheid, and he confided to me he was worried that he had come to the United States as a place that was so different from
refuge
what he'd
from
grown up
yeah.
from. Mm-hmm. And now he was seeing us going down a road where he said it reminded him a lot of those days. And that was disturbing to me. I didn't like hearing that. But it's important that people raise those kind of concerns. Well, I'm actually a very hopeful person, though. I really believe, and I think this is a great point to close on, mm-hmm. and why I'm running. My firm belief, actually, is that we really do have much more in common mm-hmm. than we have different. That we might have our individual differences in terms of our cultures that we bring, which is great and an added benefit to
our
the
languages and our religions and all this stuff, right?
But, Google Translate takes
but
care
our
of that.
values, I think, we have so much more in common than is portrayed when you tune into the media, which is likely to sensationalize our differences.
Well, and you and I have talked about this. Okay, the media is a entity that is looking for funding through advertising, and therefore needs to have a unique perspective or value proposition that will appeal to somebody. So if there's an entity that basically says, "Oh, kumbaya," and everything's fine, and let's get together around the fireplace, and they're getting funding, the next person who's going to basically want to get funding is going to have an alternative reality that they're going to pitch right. in order to basically appeal to somebody else. Right. It doesn't make any sense to compete in a space that's already been dominated, right? So let's not forget that they are businesses. But I will echo your sentiment, Chris. We've said this on the show before. When we stop talking
right.
and having conversations that are difficult,
sure,
is when we lose. Right? And we've said
then
this
on
the show.
It's difficult to talk.
You have to be able to embrace the fact that conversations are important. Even if we disagree, the process of
yes.
having the conversation
yes.
has a value.
Yes.
And where we are today is we will avoid conversations.
We will take our team, go in our corners, and I don't want to hear what the other
here's
side
the
has
challenge.
to say.
Here's the challenge I will put out to everybody who basically feels that that's what they should do. If you genuinely believe in your position, then your position should be solid.
Right.
Then you should be perfectly open to hear somebody else's
right.
opinion. How's that going to change your solid position? Or are you really afraid that by
right.
opening yourself up to another opinion,
right.
you may change yours?
Right.
And is that really that bad?
So if people are open to another alternative, how do they reach you? How do they find you? How do they support you?
The best place to get to reach out initially is on the website, chrisduncanforassembly.com. I'm on social media at Chris Duncan OC.
That's CHRIS.
CHRIS, yes.
Okay.
DUNCAN.
Right.
And look, I'm someone who is trying to cut through all that. I love different perspectives. I want to hear everybody out because I want to find that place where we have commonality. And then once we have that, let's go forward and find out the best way to bring ourselves all together and succeed.
I so wholeheartedly welcome your approach, Chris, whether I agree with your position on things or don't, and I haven't really looked at them that closely, but the point is that you are willing to basically say, it's on the issue, yeah. It is not partisan, we're all in this together, right. And to run on that,
yes,
that's refreshing, honestly.
We'll see how it works out.
Yeah. Regardless of how it works out, we need more people coming at things from that perspective.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Because it's actually more unifying.
Right.
I don't necessarily have to agree with you on everything, but again,
exactly.
Last time I looked, if I wanted to agree with the ruling party on everything, I could have lived in a dictatorial country.
Right.
That's not where I came to.
And I have a message for other people too. This is a time to get engaged. This is a time to get involved. Be civil, be tolerant, hear people out, but get engaged, be passionate about it, and stand up for what you believe is right. Even if it comes at some personal cost, right? Even if there's a sacrifice. That's what we need more of. So I hope other people will follow suit and do the same thing.
Somebody said to me that, and they said to me a while ago, and I realized that I was actually guilty of doing this. Here, we're going to wrap up here, Paul, is most people can fall into the trap of listening from the position of replying.
Yeah.
And not listening from the position of understanding.
Yes. It's hard.
It is hard because we also live in a sort of a soundbite situation. Oh, and a cause and effect.
Right.
You say one, I say two. Kind of like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But really, if you can get yourself into sometimes listening from the position of understanding,
right.
not necessarily from the position of needing to reply.
Yeah.
you may surprise yourself what you pick up along the way, including tolerance, empathy, all that stuff that seems to be lacking. And I'm hopeful like you, too. I really believe that on the human level, we all really realize this.
Yeah.
But we get a little too tribalistic.
Yeah.
And who the heck cares what jersey you're wearing? Seriously, like, really? In fact, I will tell you, from my personal position as 2020 rolls out, if somebody takes that kind of extreme position,
Right.
in my book, that immediately eliminates them from consideration.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to be biased, but if you don't give me the opportunity to see you as a person who's interested in making things better regardless of loyalty to party,
Right.
then why would I consider you?
Right.
Well, consider that we're out of time. Thank you again. Give us the website one more time.
www.chrisduncan4assembly.com.
And the ballots must be turned in when? When's the election?
The election is March 3rd. Everyone should have their ballot in the mail if they're registered. If they're not,
Go check and make sure.
Please reach out. You can email me at chrisduncanforassembly@gmail.com.
And if
you haven't
they're
got your
not
ballot.
registered, there might be a week left if you're listening to this live. And where do they go?
You got
The
6
Orange
days,
County-
basically.
And where do you go? To the Orange
Well,
County Register's
I would
office?
go to the website, which I think is OC Vote.
Yeah.
Or at least if you Google OC Vote, it might be ocvote.org. But if you go on there, all the instructions for registering online will be there.
And
I
this
know
year, the
folks have
election is
just
going to
gone
be held all by ballot or drop-offs. We're
Yes.
not going to have a polling station where you go and they find your name on the list. And
Very
Few
very
of those.
much.
Right.
It's very different this
Exactly.
year.
There will be voting centers where you can go if you didn't get a ballot, but for the far majority of people, you should have gotten a ballot in the mail.
Good deal. Thanks for coming in.
And
Thank
I
you for
want
your time.
I want to thank Paul also for letting us run over here because
Way over, but it was way important.
Yeah, and again, I'm putting out an invitation from the Rad Life and from Paul and I.
I'd love to have Bill Grow in here and any others.
Bill, come on in.
Me too.
I mean, yeah, right. And anybody who's running for office, regardless of what that level of office is, please reach out to us. I mean, we've got about 9 months. We're on the air every week. I'm not going to basically have a political candidate every week that I'm on, but I really want to give people a platform. And last time around, it worked, and it really basically, I felt good about doing it. I hope, I heard from a lot of the people that were on that it was a positive experience for them. And so here it is. The invitation is out. The door is open. Reach out to us. You can get hold of me on social media, Rod, R-A-A-D, Gantoos, G-H-A-N-T-O-U-S, or you can go to the Raad Life on Facebook. Drop me a note. Reach out to OC Talk Radio. Paul will make sure that I hear about it, and he sends me enough emails every week. And other than that, join us next week for something. Who knows what we're going to be talking about next week. Thanks, Chris, for being here.
Yep.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Rod Gantoos, brought to you on the one and only OCTalkRadio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.
Welcome once again to another episode of OC Spotlight, the one show taking a look at the most incredible people doing the most amazing things right here in our own backyard. And this week, well, maybe we topped them all this time here. I don't know. I say that every week, but this one's pretty big. We have my friend Mark Timmig in here from Esports Entertainment, also known as Esports Network.
Hey, Paul, thanks for bringing me in the studio. It's always great to be here with you. We've got an incredible subject to talk about today.
Esports, this is just the topic of the day here. I was telling somebody just the other day, because full disclosure, they're now syndicated on our station as well, so that we run these Esports Minute, as you've been hearing, throughout the day, and prompting people to ask me, show hosts, show guests, and show listeners, what the heck is esports? And I'm like, have you been living under a rock? This thing is huge. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Paul, because not everybody is a gamer. And frankly, if you're 45 and older, you may not be a gamer, but you
why are you looking at me over your that way?
Well, but you absolutely know someone, whether it's a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, a grandchild.
My son-in-law. Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody who is really excited about playing some type of online gaming, whether it's on their mobile phone or on their computer or on a workstation or
anywhere
console. There are all different ways in which people can engage with online gaming, and it is a global phenomena. This is not something just in our neighborhood or our country. This is, matter of fact, in China, there are more esports gamers, if you will, than there is population in the entire United States.
But how do you take the leap from people playing themselves, participating in a game, to watching others play the game?
Well, that's a great question as well. People really enjoy. A good example is if you like to watch baseball, you might also like to play baseball.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think what people find
that's me in basketball. I was never very good at playing, but I sure love watching it, and it makes me appreciate it that much more because I know how difficult what they're doing is.
Yeah, it all looks easy from the stand, doesn't it?
Right.
Those 3-point shots. Yeah, I can make that.
Yeah.
So I think you make an excellent point. People watch because both they're interested in the sport, but they also watch to get the tips and the tricks and how do these people actually do what they do.
Yeah.
And whether we can perform at the same level or not, we're interested in learning those things. And I think,
and we're amazed by those that can.
Absolutely. Whether it's golf or football or basketball, any sport, including online sports. And I think But people have trouble with that. I mentioned this too. Give me that quizzical look like, why would you watch somebody play a video game? And I say, why would you watch somebody shoot a basket? Why would you watch people hit a golf ball? And they kind of go, well, yeah, I guess. But that's something in the physical realm, and I guess this is something in the online realm. But to my kids, there's no difference. Yeah, I think, fantasy, if you will, and when we enter into a game, whether it's watching a game courtside or on television, we're also entering into that game and seeing in our own imagination how we might be connected to that.
We're there. I feel it. I'm shooting what he's shooting. I'm doing what he's doing or she's doing.
Absolutely the case. And so one of the things that is really incredible about online gaming is there's a game for everyone. They're all different types of games that can be played. They're nature games, they're shooting games, they're mystery games and fantasy games and World of Warcraft and League of Legends and all of these things.
Because that was going to be my next question here, have they decided on a set number of games? Is this only for World of Warcraft players? And I bring that one up very specifically because, folks, if you aren't aware of it, World of Warcraft, which is what, Blizzard here?
Yes.
Is, I believe, the largest online game in the world, or one of them. I don't know how many gazillion people participate in this game. You join in and play online with however many players are there online. And they've been doing it for a while. I think they take, is it Angel Stadium or one of those places? And they literally have these giant rallies or get-togethers or demonstrations where people play games. Maybe it's even a competition. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, there's League of Legends, which is now extremely popular, and there are many other variations of games that are coming out that people enjoy watching and participating. And yes, there are certain tournaments that can fill up entire venues, a stadium, and
stadium
so on. Yes.
Of people watching on big screens people play a video game.
Yeah. And it's really well spoken about in certain reviews that have been done, where you're playing with people that you or watching with people that you've built a community with. And one of the things that's quite interesting is, of course, the U.S. military is actually getting involved in providing gaming centers in a number of their bases, both domestically and internationally.
Interesting.
Because now you can have a young man or woman who joins the service, and maybe they're in Germany, and they can go online and play with their friends, their family, family members, other people, and stay connected. And they can make new relationships and meet new people. This is a well-known reason why people do enjoy it. It is also very much about community.
And I hate to say it, but Warfare of the Future is going to look more like a video game to people of my era than my father's in the trenches World War II kind of fighting. For example, they fly drones, I believe, out of North Dakota and shoot at bad guys over in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, let's hope that there are fewer human beings involved in some of this. And I think, one of the things I want to take a brief minute and talk about is there are a lot of parents who are very concerned about their children playing games.
I would think so. Does it create more violence, or is it too absorbing or too sedentary and all these things?
Yeah, and I want to speak to some of those, because when my kids were growing up and they got involved in gaming, I had some of those same concerns as a parent, and I decided to, of course, get more interested and involved in exactly what my kids were doing, so that I could understand, is this friend or foe? And I want to really try to attack some of the myths that, as parents, I had, and my wife had, and others have had, and still do.
But many of we're all of a certain generation here, and we look at this askance. We're not sure what it is, like you said, friend or foe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that's really important to think about, for example, let me take one of the very common myths where people will say, well, kids are just sitting there in front of the screen for hours, eating junk food and drinking soft drinks, and getting fat and not being outside and looking up at the clouds and imagining the wilderness and so on. And my first question to parents, meaning no disrespect, but who buys the food in your home? Your children or you?
Yeah. Wow.
And if you're an adult and you're a parent, I'm a parent, I have a responsibility to buy the right food I want my children to eat. So no, my kids cannot get potato chips and ho-hos and soft drinks from my cabinets, because we don't buy that food.
So one doesn't automatically go with the other. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think blaming poor eating habits or dietary habits or obesity on gaming is absolutely misdirected.
But they are sedentary, and that was my parents' objection to I was the first TV generation that came about in the 50s here, and I spent a lot of time in front of that boob tube, and a lot was written about what's that doing to my brain and what's that doing to my body here.
Right, but when my kids were playing, they were snacking on grapes and apples and healthy food, because my wife was very concerned about what are our kids going to grow up eating, and we didn't want kids who were obese, growing up, whether they participated
diabetic
or not.
Obese,
exactly, all of these situations. So gaming is not the
that's not the reason for diabetes.
Exactly, it's not the cause of it. The cause of it is how we live our lives, and as parents, what kind of example we lead with, and then what do we put in the cabinets for our children to have readily available.
And rightly or wrongly, like anything, like my parents eventually controlled the TV time. Any of this stuff can be abused. You can watch television 24 days. You can play games 24 hours a day. You can lay on the couch 24 days. You can do anything you want to do. And you have to, it's part of a healthy, balanced lifestyle. But to also have this Luddite view that we can all go away and it's just, we're going to blink our eyes and it's going to disappear, is to ignore my grandson and all the others. My grandson's 5, and he loves video games, and we control how many and how often, but I can't control his enthusiasm for them, and I can't keep him out of that world.
Well, I will also relate gaming to something else. I spent a number of years in charter school education, and one of the cornerstones of what I had done in charter school education was to have built quite a number of at-risk dropout high schools that educated kids that the traditional system had decided were uneducatable.
Right, that's the strength of charter schools. Right?
And in our particular model, we threw out the traditional model of educating kids because it doesn't work with dropouts, and we brought in a computer-based, self-paced learning system, which was incredibly effective. In fact, I graduated over 8,000 students while I was involved alone with full state recognized diplomas, not GEDs. And
teaching to them the way that they want to relate to. Yeah.
Their level, their pace, they're in control, and we were there as educators to support them, not to stand in front of them and direct them. And I think when you empower young people who need to go at their own pace, and when they're dropout students, oftentimes they have other issues or personal problems, and maybe even alcohol or drug addictions, and they may go away for 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days and then come back. In a normal classroom situation, you're done. You're out of it. But on a computer-based, you just log back on and you're back in.
Well, because that speaks to them. They are fluent in that language. I'm still a digital learner. They're a digital native. They live in these platforms naturally. And I give you an example again. My 5-year-old grandson, I've watched him develop, and he started obviously introduced to video games through his friends, through his family, through everything. And whether we wanted to or not, he just was drawn to these things and plays them as often as we'll let him play them. And so I can say, gee, it's killing his brain cells or whatever. It's also building his brain cells. And I'll give you an example why. The other day, we're walking along a trail behind our house, and he comes to a big sign, and he says, Grandpa, he says, why no dogs allowed here? And I look at him and I said, when did you learn to read? And he points at the sign. Of course, it's a symbol with the line through it. And I thought, where did he figure that out? Games. There's all sorts of things. I watched him the other day in a new game I bought him. And he immediately, the question was, how old are you? And he doesn't know what it says, but he's intuitive enough to figure it out. They're asking for my age here somewhere. And he sees a little dial, and he spins it, and it comes to the number 5, and he hits it. I go, how did you figure that? And he says, I just know this stuff. I'm amazed at what they figure out from these things.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more about this computer-based learning, because that's what games do.
It is, exactly.
And I'm going to give you a couple of points on that. One is that a lot of people recognize, and you may or may not be familiar with this term, but it's called STEM skills. And these are skills that are well respected in the education process.
Is this the science, technologies type of stuff that we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
Right.
And
education and what I forgot the E's for, but science, technology, something in math.
I tell you what, they're the fundamental principles of many a person learning engineering, and all kinds of different jobs that involve science and math and so on. And I want to demonstrate really in a game how they use and develop and have to excel at STEM skills. So when you look at the STEM skills, they include things like collaboration, cooperation, analytics, forecasting, and both really envisioning things. So imagination and in terms of math and strategy, tactics, all of those things are very much a part of what is taught in a typical STEM curriculum. And in fact,
this isn't the games I grew up with, Pong or whatever here, where you're just bouncing a ball back and forth. Or this is pretty sophisticated stuff, even at entry level.
Absolutely. So when you're playing, and you mentioned World of Warcraft example, I mean, you're dealing with strategy and tactics, and you're communicating with your teammates, and you're identifying where you think you have the best odds of succeeding, and you're predicting things, and you're imagining things, and all of these things are all exercising and developing your capabilities along those lines. So this idea that kids are doing something completely mindless and it has absolutely no value is really not true at all.
Yeah, look beyond the surface of the game. Okay, so they're chasing something or trying to collect something or shoot something or stop something. But look at what they're doing in the process. Look at what it's teaching them to do.
Absolutely. And one of the other things I want to talk a little bit about is the marketplace and esports, and from an investor standpoint, because there may be some investors listening here, is we've spent a good year looking at the esports marketplace on a global scale and a domestic scale here in the U.S. And we've decided where we want to play in this space. And
let's talk about that. Why you built this company, what you guys do.
And I want to also say there's some areas we don't want to be involved in because they've actually been a pretty big economic black hole for people at this point.
Okay.
So first, talking about the areas that have been very economically challenged initially include things like arenas. They're very expensive to build, very expensive to support, and are not utilized enough to really make them economically sound investments. And
you can fill them up for a day, but can you fill them up 30 days?
Yeah, that's a big problem. And of course, they require a lot of sophisticated hardware, which of course, as we know in technology, things are moving so fast. You could put in hundreds of servers or computers to play games, and a year or 18 months later, there's something far better. And if you're a competitive gamer, you don't want to be on yesterday's technology.
No.
You want to be on the latest. So,
changes quickly,
the change factor, the support, the stuff breaks down at times, needs maintenance, needs support, gets viruses. It's just like a population of people in a way. So there's a tremendous amount of team required of people on your staff to be able to host these things.
And yet, listening to the Esports Minute as they've been running here over the last few weeks here on OC Talk Radio, I'm